Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and this is To Back or Not to Back, where we're going to go through a variety of campaigns, talking about what they're offering, what to get, what makes sense to back, should you back it at all of those things. But we're going to go ahead and start this off, and it is another light week. Last week was particularly light. This week has a few more interesting things, but it's still a light week. We're still picking up speed into crowdfunding. Next week, I don't know if there'll be enough for To Back or Not to Back. As usual, we'll have a video up regardless, and the week after that, I think I'm out of town no matter what. So we'll see how the next 2 weeks fare. We'll find out together. You and I will find out together and all of that. But let's go ahead and start off this week with, starting off as usual with our segment, Cult of the Now. Cult of the Now is where we take a look at a currently available game. Despite the temptations of crowdfunding, which are very much present, trust me, I know, despite the temptations of crowdfunding, sometimes you're getting games that are coming in a year and a half. There's not really a lot of reviews for them, and you have no idea whether you have to pay extra shipping or whether they may not deliver at all, and sometimes you can just get a game at retail, like now. Like, sometimes great games are available at retail. And over here we have El Grande from Miniature Market. This is the new version of the game, which says Handsome Clock on the box, but I thought Lucky Duck was distributing it, so I don't know where it's coming from publisher-wise, but this is the new version of El Grande, a classic from 1995, originally from Rio Grande Games, that has been out for quite some time, but it's an amazing game, an incredible game, that actually I hope to have a review up on my channel soon for it. I've been slowly going through all my top 100 games of all time to put out reviews for the ones that don't have reviews, of which is around 20 or so, and I want to fill in those gaps, and El Grande has been on my top 100 every single year for 4 years straight, so that one's overdue for a review. But with that, let's go and dive into the rest of the campaigns, although as usual, starting off with a reminder, please disclaimer and all that stuff, please take into account that I am CMO of GameFound, I work for GameFound as we go through these campaigns, and I take that and any potential biases into account as we go through this video. Let's go ahead and starting off specifically with Conan. Conan by Monolith, Red Nails expansion and versus mode. 4,400 backers, $633,000 raised. Conan has been out for quite some time. I mean, the original Conan. Conan has been a game that's been around for a long time from Monolith, a very popular game. Started off as a head-to-head game with then introduced a co-op and versus mode as well. But the general idea is you have one side taking control of several heroes in the game, as those heroes are going to be activating using their card rows, where they kind of have a Arc Nova type system, but kind of in reverse. If you've played Arc Nova or games like that, where your actions get more powerful as you manipulate them in the card row, in Conan, it's not that they get more powerful necessarily, but they cost more. So you can continuously take repeated actions, but you're paying a premium for them unless you slowly let them tick downwards. So it's a constant optimization puzzle as you try to be mindful of your heroes and how to activate and how to use them in this game. And then you're either facing off against the Overlord, or if you're using the co-op rules and all that, then you're facing off against an automated opponent instead. So there is solo and co-op play as well in this game. The game is incredibly well rated, has a ton of scenarios to go through, has a ton of expansion content, and yes, this campaign is going to be returning with the King's Pledge, which is very popular over here. We have the Red Nails Pledge for €69, and then we have the new Recruit Pledge, which is giving you the full Deluxe King's Pledge Edition for €99 for this game. So if you want the miniatures, the game, all the fun things over here going on with Conan, that's going to be your entry point into the series. Red Nails going to be introducing a new content of the game, a new campaign if I recall correctly. Whereas over here, we have a new campaign for the game over here, new miniatures, new characters, new campaign to go through, and we have the Veteran Pledge for €139, and then the All-In for €238 for the game over here, the Masters Librarians Pledge. This game in general is, again, incredibly well rated. It started off as a head-to-head, it has co-op and solo, so there's a lot of gameplay modes, there's a lot of miniatures, there's a ton of gameplay content, introducing more and more co-op modes to the various scenarios as you go through it, and then of course they have the expansions and the stretch goals going through the campaign as well to take into account all of that. As far as should you back or should you not will hold its value, although before we do, let's point out the 34 to 44 euro shipping over there. That is a lot. That's putting into command levels of territory as far as their shipping prices, which is not to say ultimately it's still worth it or it's not worth it, but just don't be caught off guard by the sticker shock of that. That is definitely a decent amount of change for that. But anyways, as far as should you back or should you not for the game, short version is, it is expensive, especially once you factor in the shipping costs. In general, Conan has done a pretty decent job holding its value. It's not I would say overall, you're likely to get what you put into it, if not more back. Generally, this is one that has gone out of print at various times. Again, 4,400 people backing this campaign. There's a lot of people who are interested in Conan, and generally this one has done a decent job holding its value. It's always hard to say when you're on like the third expansion or a reprint of a game, but overall, this is generally done fairly well on the secondhand market. If it turns out to be a game that's not for you, you can probably get your money back. Moving on over here to GameFound, we have Master of the Universe, the board game Clash for Eternia. This is the reprint from Command Games for Master of the Universe that has a bunch of people very happy to get their hands on the game and a bunch of people very upset about the pricing or lack of availability of certain pledges. Master Universe was put out last year on maybe 2 years ago. It was put out on Kickstarter, delivered last year, giving you the one versus many gameplay of Master Universe, semi based on the World of Smog, Rise of Malika gameplay system with a bunch of new differences, changes, all of that, giving you a ton of expansions and characters. And again, this one has a solo mode, has a co-op mode, has a versus mode, has a one versus many mode. Well, the versus mode is the one versus many, depends on how many players are at the table, but effectively, you have one person taking control of the Overlord character, who has a different title if I recall. I just played this last week, I forget the title of it, but the Overlord character, the one side of the board, you have one player taking control of that board, controlling the minions, controlling their 3 heroes, and the other side takes control of a variable number of heroes. Depending on your player count, the system accommodates all player counts, well, not all player counts, but you can have up to 1 to 4 heroes being played on one side, as you go through a bunch of scenario-based objectives trying to take down the various, well, whatever you're trying to do, whether it's kills, whether it's an escort quest, whether it's gathering a bunch of relics or whatever it is, you're trying to accomplish your goals. Both sides have their various goals. Sometimes they're symmetric, sometimes they're asymmetric, but they are asymmetric in how the systems work. On the hero side, every time you spend your energy, it's going to be going towards that Overlord character, which means just be mindful of, is it worth that ability? Is it worth trying to power up, to roll extra dice, to re-roll, because you are feeding into the Master of Darkness, you're feeding into the other side of the table, and giving them more power to hit back. So, is it worth it or not? Is it crunch time? All of those things to go through. The game has a ton of expansions, bringing more characters, more gameplay, more scenarios, and it also has a ton of not gameplay, but deluxified components and whatnot, from giant plastic castles to terrain to any number of different things to neoprene mats, all of those things being more deluxification to your table. That's the general idea of the actual game. Past that, over here on the campaign, there's a few things to note. The first is that the original Master of the Universe campaign was only available to the US or a few countries, but is not available to most of Europe, which is one of the main reasons for this campaign. This campaign is going to be about making it available to, well, a much larger pool of people. But as far as the game itself, so if you already back this game in general, then the only new thing you have to be mindful of is Cyclone and Jitsu are going to be new characters available for $20. That's including shipping. So it's basically $10 per character. Shipping's already factored in, but again, still $10 per character, which is more than your average cost of the character in the game. But hey, if you want to get absolutely everything, that's going to be a chance or opportunity to do so. Past that, the pledges are basically going to be similar to what they had in the past, with the very, very, very key distinction that many of the pledges are not available to the US. So over here we see Cyclone over here, free shipping to US, but a lot of the pledges over here, not available to the US, not available to the US, not available to the US. Now to be very clear here, I do not know for a fact the reason as far as why they're not available, but I have to assume it's because of distributor relationships and agreements. Meaning I have to assume that if like Asmodee is going ahead and selling their all-in pledge or whatever it is for, not the all-in, if Asmodee is selling the core pledge for $110, it's not a great look for them to go ahead and ship you the entire deluxification and everything for $110. Basically, they have to be mindful to their partners. Again, this is me assuming, I do not know this for sure. I'm just mindful of that line, because anything I would know for sure from GameFound, I'd only say if I was allowed to or whatever, but I do not know this for sure. I am assuming though that it's because of those distributor relationships, which unfortunately does make sense. It does suck as someone who is like looking to get into the game as a US backer who was excited to go ahead and get everything, and seeing that you don't have that same availability. It's not a fun realization that you're paying more for missing out, and that is unfortunate. I guess I'm sympathetic and empathetic to that feeling, while also understanding that they do have to be mindful of basically saying, hey, by the way, you're our partner selling our games, and we're not going to go ahead and just sell our games for a much better deal than you are already getting. I'm assuming that to be mindful of those things, and that does limit your options. It doesn't mean that you can't get the exclusives. It does not mean that. It does mean that the price point for anything that involves things you can get at retail will ultimately end up costing you more, because if you're going to get it from them, or they're just not going to give it to you option at all. It looks like they're just not selling the stuff that's going to be giving you that stuff, and therefore they're not undercutting their own sales. So again, not fun, but it is what it is. But that's basically going to be the various, the general idea behind the pledges. As far as the pledges themselves, we have the gameplay exclusive for $170 in case you missed out on all that stuff. So if you want all the stuff that is exclusive that you can't get at retail, well, that's going to run you $170. We have $20 for the Jitsu and Cyclone. We have Plastic Castle Grayskull for $75. We have the Box of Power for $100. We have the Master of the Universe $110 for the, again, base pledge plus, all the plus all the stretch goals. Defenders of Grayskull for $220. Gameplay all in for $345. And again, please pay attention to these tags over here. If you buy something that's unavailable to the USA, well, it's just going to be a frustrating moment for you if you can't actually check out. And we have I Have the Power for $445 for basically everything. And then we have the individual, if you want to pick and choose your various stuff over here, all those options are over here as well. That's basically everything. That's what we have as far as the gameplay goes, and all as far as the what the game is bringing to the table, all of those things. As far as should you back it, should you not, will it hold its value? Well, first of all, reminder on shipping costs. The shipping costs are not the cheapest. Please take that into account as you go through it over here. But past that, generally this game has done well in the secondhand market. It has done a good job holding its value overall, despite the incredibly high price point for the game. The all-in ranging from like $220 to like $345, depending on if you're getting all the extras, exclusives, and all the castles and plastic and all those things. Despite the price point of it all, it has done a good job holding its value on the secondhand market. Generally, that's true for most Command campaigns, and even those $20 miniatures, which I do think, again, if you pay $20 for 2 miniatures, you don't need them. To be very, very clear, nearly everything else you get in this campaign will be a better $1 gameplay value than those 2 miniatures. Those 2 miniatures are exclusively for those who have the I need it all mentality, because the reality is that this will be the cheapest chance to get those miniatures in general. You could get them now for $20, or you can get them on the secondhand market on eBay for like $50 to $70 down the road, because no one else can get their hands on them. So if you do want them, this campaign is the best way to get your hands on them. In fact, they let you order 2, and honestly, if you're willing to go through the hassle of it, ordering 2 and selling that extra copy on eBay is probably worth it for you overall. That said, if you're looking at it purely from a gameplay perspective, it is the worst dollar per gameplay you'll get for the entire campaign here, although I guess that's a relevant question depending on whether you count gameplay for deluxifications, because then it's a whole different conversation. But in terms of any other expansion, we'll give you more content for a better price point if your concern is dollar for gameplay. And as somebody who owns the game, I mean, I just don't think I'll ever notice missing 2 miniatures, considering the sheer amount of gameplay components I have, and the sheer amount of miniatures you have, and the fact that the game does a fun little thing where you can play both sides, meaning you could have Skeletor as the Overlord side, but you could also have Skeletor as the hero side, facing off against Master of the Universe on the Overlord side. So the game gives you an absolute ton of gameplay, replayability, powers, and abilities. You will not miss those 2 miniatures if you don't get them. Unless, of course, you have FOMO. But that's a different problem. Anyways, moving on to our next campaign, we have Kabuto Sumo Sakura Slam, and this is not an expansion. This is a standalone game. It does mix and match as far as the various characters, but it's a standalone sequel to the Kabuto Sumo and all that stuff, but basically giving you a different board and some, well, small differences. But this different board over here, this square board with little pylons in the corner that look like a fun little system, also has a little mechanic in the game where, as you know, let's talk about the game first. Let's tell you what Kabuto Sumo is in case you don't know. But 3,200 backers, $317,000 raised, 10 days to go. Kabuto Sumo is basically giving you, well, this. It's giving you a game which you're going to be taking little tokens, pushing them onto that little platform, which will knock off other tokens, and you're trying to knock off your opponent's tokens while dealing with all the other tokens along the way. But anything you knock off basically goes into your own pool as currency, as tokens you can push on. So it gives you a bit of a gameplay mechanic of just trying to have more impactful turns as you get larger tokens, push them on, and knock your opponents off. That's the core idea of the gameplay. Basically, if you've ever gone to an arcade and played one of those coin games where you toss a coin in, it slides down, you try to push it out, that's basically what this game is, just in a board game form. The original Kabuto Sumo had a circular board, and this one gives you a square board plus new characters, and also gives you a rule aspect where as you place things onto the board, and it changes a bunch of things, so like even the platform the way it is, the fact that you can only push on the edges instead of the center means it's a little bit more offensive instead of defensive. The fact that as you place on the pylons, you're going to put one of your player tokens on the pylon, and once you've done all 4 pylons, you get a free push basically, which means you have a constant push as to, are you just trying to maximize your free pushes, or are you choosing where to go, and then every once in a while you have that option for locking in a free push when it matters most. There's a bunch of gameplay aspects that are changing over here based on this new board, and as somebody who loved the concept of this game, but the game didn't ultimately work for me because of issues with the board, I am actually very intrigued whether this would solve that for me, because I'm very intrigued as to whether this would make Kabuto Sumo a game that I am more interested in, because I always love the concept, just the gameplay execution for me it was too much, just, you know, not having impact. Honestly, it felt like they did a good job capturing in the original game, at least for me, and it's a well-loved game, so take that into account. But for me, the original game kind of captured the frustration of the coin arcade instead of the magic of the coin arcade. So it did capture it, just the negative parts of it, not the positive parts. But anyways, it's going to be the new version of the game, and there's a bunch of pledge levels over here. We have Kabuto Sumo, the base game plus promo over here. That promo is going to be a promo character with the first metal piece from all of Kabuto Sumo as its main piece. Basically, the characters come with an ability, but also unique pieces that go onto the board in different ways. Then we have the new gameplay plus the expansion over here, bringing Kabuto Sumo plus this drafting expansion. It is called the, what is it called? It's called the Swarm expansion. That's going to give you a whole drafting element where you can go ahead and build and mix and match from the various expansions over here. From the various, wait, maybe is that the expansion? I think the Swarm expansion is going to be the mix and matching from the various things, letting you draft your team of characters. I believe that's what it was. Then we have over here all the new stuff for $89, and this is going to give you the base game, the expansion, the promo. So that's all those, and the deluxe sumo ring over here. So you're going to get basically these wooden rings instead, both for the original game and for the new one. You're going to get a rotating board over here, which is called a, oh my gosh, why am I blanking what it's called? when you have a rotating board, it's called a... I'm blanking. When you have a rotating thingy, there's a term for it. I'm completely blanking. There's 17 people typing in the comments down below. I'll get to it. I don't know why I'm blanking on this. But either way, you're going to have a rotating board over here, but you're going to have both for the square and for the circle board from the original one. And you're going to have the various components, the platforms to push them on. So if you want an extra upgrade to your board, and you also, most importantly, get the Kabuto Mushy plushie over here. So you're going to get a little plushie for in the game as well. We have the all-in bundle giving you all the various things, including the original base game and the other 2 expansions, and all the other stuff we talked about for $149. And that's basically what you have over here as far as, well, all the stuff for the game. And I have to scroll down and see what it's called because it's going to drive me nuts. What is that stuff called? And we have over here, we have this, this is the draft your perfect team, the swarm. So you're combining all the wrestlers, you draft a team, and then best 2 out of 3 wins over here. We have the Lazy Susan. Dear Lord, Alex, I need coffee. Lazy Susan. Yeah, that's what it is. Anyways, that's basically what we have over here. As far as should you back or should you not, will it hold its value? Less likely to hold its value overall. In general, the all-play stuff, it is very situational, but for the most part, it doesn't necessarily hold its value. But it is the best place to get your hands on stuff, especially if you want the extras. My general recommendation for most all-play campaigns, and this is actually a slightly different campaign, because this is more of a dedicated Kabuto Sumo campaign, and most of the campaigns are usually not as dedicated. They're usually like, hey, here's 3 different games to go ahead and back, or here's 4 expansions for our games. This one is a dedicated, hey, here's everything Kabuto Sumo, and it's doing well for them. But overall, I would say that my usual recommendation applies, which is if you're just interested in the stuff that goes to retail, once you factor in shipping and everything else, you may as well just wait to get it down at retail down the road, check to see how well it's received, pick it up whenever there's a sale, all that kind of stuff overall. But on the other hand, if you are looking to get all the stuff, especially if you're looking to get that mushy plushie over here, or any of the Lazy Susan boards, any of the extras basically at the higher pledge levels, that's where it's usually worth going ahead and jumping on their campaign, where you do get a discount for buying more stuff from them, which they generally do a good job with their high level pledges, and not as good with their small level pledges. So I'd say that if you are interested in some of the extra stuff, then it is probably worth going ahead and getting this on the campaign, if you're interested in the game, of course. But overall, it is less likely to hold its value. The games are usually very well received, but they have so many games coming out all the time that usually the extra stuff isn't as sought after or in demand just because of how much stuff there is out there. Anyways, that's going to be Kabuto Sumo, which means we're going to move on to a rolling right. We have Knight. Follow the fate of the Knight in a unique print-and-play strategy game. 1,000 backers, $14,000 raised, 10 days to go. Coming from Rada Kikinashi over here, he's done a bunch of these print-and-play roll-and-write campaigns continuously, from Space Alone and Island Alone and Roll and Meow, and he even has an all-in bundle on this campaign if you're interested in that. In fact, for Knight over here, we have the core game for €5, we have the all-in for €10, and then we have all the other stuff. The €19, we have all his things, 22 games, Island Alone, Roll and Meow, you're getting all the stuff for all his campaigns for €19. So if you are missed any of his stuff, there's 344 people on this campaign who are basically saying, give me all of that stuff, I want it all. And in general, his stuff has been fairly well received. If you do like print-and-play games, if you are actually going to take the time to print them out and utilize them, I mean, the amount of gameplay you're getting out of that €19 is fantastic. Whereas on the other hand, if you're like me and you only want to get these games, but then ultimately you don't actually print them out and play them, well, the €19 is just going to a game that's not being utilized, which is like half my Steam library, but whatever. In any case, we have this game over here is going to be a print-and-play roll-and-write game. It's going to involve you drafting your character, drafting the board, and going ahead and rolling dice and trying to, well, win again in the game. The game is going to have a versus mode with a full area control element, but the primary game design element seems to be based around solo, and say seems to be, I mean, they say themselves. The original game design of this was based around trying to be a solo game that's trying to mimic the chaining comboing of Hadrian's Wall. So this is very much targeting people who appreciated and enjoyed Hadrian's Wall, and it's going to be, here, choose your knight over here, choose the scenario playing as, draw a gold card, and go ahead and take your turns in the game. Past that over here, like it says over here, the primary game mode was originally based on solo. They have a simultaneous play mode where you're basically both playing your own game and comparing scores, and then they have a full-on war mode where you're actually going more of an area control puzzle on the drafting that extra map in addition to everything else, and you're fighting off on this larger board as you go through it. The game looks compelling, but again, in general, his games are well received. I just don't play these. I always want to, especially the comparison to Hadrian's Wall makes me even more interested. But I just ultimately, I wish there was like a service, and there are services, I guess, that you could just like have boxed deluxe versions of print and play roll and write games. And the problem is, I think most of the time even the services that do that, they're not like, I don't know. I want like actual box copies of so many of these roll and write games to really give them a shot, but honestly it's probably better for me that I don't, because I already cannot keep up with the amount of games out there. And anyways, as far as should you back or should you not, will it hold its value? It's a print and play, so no, it won't hold its value. Ultimately for you, the gameplay value is 100% there if it's something you're going to print out and play, but not something you can really sell in the secondhand market when you're done. Then we have Fate, Defenders of Grimheim over here. $90,000 raised, 949 backers, 11 days to go. Fate Defenders of Grimheim gives you a cooperative adventure game set in Norse mythology from the designers, from the company behind Firaxis Games, the company behind Terraforming Mars. Now this is going to be cooperative tower defense-ish. Basically, you're going to have your characters on the board, and every round you're going to have enemies spawning from the various corners of the map. There's 3 different sectors of enemies. Or is it 4 sectors of enemies? It might have been 4 sectors of enemies. This is a gameplay on the channel. You can check this out. Oh, and disclaimer that Board Game Co. did do sponsored content around this game. Please take that into account. But the game is going to have you overwhelmed with hordes of enemies as you wander around the board trying to level up your characters, trying to gather cards and abilities and accomplish little mini goals during the game in order to get more abilities, in order to get more perks and get more resources to be able to unlock more cards. The game has basically building up your own characters, your own heroes in the game as you go through it, while being beset by the various enemies, each who have their own slightly asymmetric abilities as far as how they operate, how much extra damage they do, how much faster they move, how they resist damage, all those different little mini abilities from the various factions on the board. I think there's 3 sides. It's just the 3 sides, I think. I can't remember. Maybe it's 4? 1, 2, 3, 4. There might have been 4 sides. I'm like blanking. Like, I think there's 3, but the visually is, I don't know. Anyways, that's going to be as far as the games over here. Let me see if we can see in miniatures. We have Trolls, Brutes, Goblins, Jotun, Elementals, Sprites. Yeah, it's 3 sectors. We have the Trolls, Brutes, and Goblins, the Jotun, Elementals, and Sprites, and the Draugr Skeletons and the Imps. It was 3 different factions, each with 3 different types of monsters or strengths of monsters in them. That's basically the game idea. You're going to be utilizing your heroes, trying to survive, taking down enemies in the game. For €49, we have the Viking Warrior Pledge. It's going to be the base game, which gives you the Defenders of Grimheim, the Hero Equipment Pack, the Events Promo Pack, and the Threats and Resistance Promo Pack. For €65, you're getting the additional Sindra and Finkel 2 more characters basically to play around in the game. That's going to be an additional €16 to get those 2 characters. For the Viking Legend over here, you get all the stuff, plus the various Legend miniatures and Monster miniatures as well. So if these things, if bought separately, would cost you a lot, they give you a discount to get them all together. But again, that's basically giving you miniature deluxification to your game. If you want your enemy tokens to be replaced by miniatures instead of little tokens on the board, and then the Legends as well, the Legends being replaced by miniatures as well, that's going to give you the opportunity to completely minify your game. For €15, we have sleeves. We have the Legend miniatures separately, the Monster miniatures separately. Again, you can see over here, they'd be $114 if you bought them separately, so that all-in pledge does make sense if you are interested in getting them. Like, I don't imagine anyone should get the Legend and Monster miniatures on their own, unless, and I know, not unless, there's no unless. I don't imagine anyone should get these on their own, I guess, unless you want a second copy. But then maybe, I don't know. Either way, I'd recommend getting the all-in if you are interested in minifying your game. But anyways, past that, they have a bunch of stretch goals being released, more cards and threat cards and all these various things being added. Just more cards to the game, basically, as you go through the daily reveals. And then we have the promo packs over here for the Hero Equipment promo pack, the Events promo pack, and the Threats and Resistance promo pack for the game. That's basically going to be this game. A tower defense game from Firaxis Games, and shipping as well is going to be running you €15 to €22 in the USA, plus of course various wherever else you're going. But that is basically the game, which brings us to the should you back it, should you not, will it hold its value, and I'm skeptical it will. I enjoyed the game. I had a lot of fun with it. I thought it was a fun game. But with 951 backers, it's definitely a level of demand here. So it's not like a game that's not, I mean, again, the Terraforming Mars name is going to do that. Combined with again, the game is a good game. It has overall very fun. But I just think the price point for the miniatures option is a little more expensive than people might be interested in, or in the secondary market as far as how well it'll do. And then past that, that leaves you looking at more of a retail price point. I think this is one that's going to do fine. If it does have a retail presence, I think it'll do fine. But I think the price point on the campaign versus what it'll cost down the road, I'm skeptical you'll be getting your money back on this one. I could be wrong. It's hard to say for sure. Some of that might depend on that retail presence, but I think this is one that's more of a risk category than a safe back. Moving on over here, we have Metrorunner from Thunderworks Games. It's $50,000 raised, 927 backers, 15 days to go. Metrorunner is going to be bringing you, it's going to be giving you a worker placement game, although worker placement with a little map here where you're basically riding the subway. And every turn you can take an action on the spot in front of you, or 2 spots in front of you, or you can pay to go anywhere else on the board, to take a taxi somewhere on the board. So basically, you're trying to either maximize your actions based on a limited currency, or you have the more freedom and flexibility, but at the cost of using your money to take different actions as you go through the game. That's going to be the basic challenge as far as when do you choose to jump ahead to take the next sequence of 2 or 3 actions versus when do you just go through the process trying to be mindful of which actions are favoring you in the game. Along the way, you're going to be trying to accomplish your goals, solve little puzzles, messing with this little mini grid over here where you have opportunities to try to make different endpoints match as you accomplish different challenges, and trying to move your trackers with the board as you try to win in Metrorunner. That's the basic idea of the game over here. We have the little net game services over here. You can be moving this around, trying to accomplish certain end goals, all these little fun things over there. We have our little tokens over here. As far as the extras over here, This is a fully stretched game. There's not going to be upgrades to promos, to cards, to card stock, all those things. The basic idea over here is you can either get the game first. If you back this game, if you back this game on the campaign, you'll be getting it before others, and effectively getting it before retail. But additionally, the other two reasons to go ahead and get this game are, well, supporting the creator as well, but the Thunderworks exclusive, the metal pan-up tiles, and the drop site mini expansion. The metal pan-up tiles are basically going to be replacing these tiles with deluxified components, and the drop site expansion gives you little spots where, as you travel around the board, you're collecting, basically, you're picking things up and dropping them off along the way, and you're trying to get the various rewards for doing those. So it gives you a little bit more of a pick up and deliver, I guess, element to the game. Something else to be mindful of as you wander around the board as you go through it. Both of these are going to be Thunderworks exclusive, which means they'll be available from Thunderworks at conventions. They're not going to be crowdfunding exclusive, but they are going to be slightly more of a pain to track down, which does factor into the whole should you back. Because the pledge levels over here are $48 for the game, or $60 for the Prime Runner, which is basically going to be shipping goods charged after, what is this, the drop set mini expansion, metal pan-up tiles. This is... Oh, the metal pan-up tiles, that's the difference. The difference is the metal pan-up tiles being in this pledge over here. That's basically going to be the pledge levels for the game over here. $48 or $60 for the game, plus shipping as well. In general, Thunderworks Games is one of those companies that, like a few others out there, that basically says, hey, get it at retail or don't. Get it from us now or later. Either way, we're not really pricing anything exclusive behind the campaign. You can get everything at some point, one way or another. And that does, on the one hand, that makes them a very, what's the right word for it? It means they're not operating or preying on FOMO in any way, shape, or form. On the other hand, it does factor into the reasons to get it now, and the reasons over here generally come down to supporting the creator because you appreciate that kind of thing, or trying to get it early because you want the game early, or not having to deal with the hassle of trying to track down these separate extras, the metal pan-up tiles, and the drop set expansion later, because price point wise, you're going to be paying basically the same for these things once you factor those in and shipping and all that. You're not really getting a large savings in the game. Rather, you're just getting the accessibility of getting deluxifications without having to hunt them down or track them down later. So as far as should you back it, should you not, will it hold its value? I'm skeptical it'll hold its value, but if you are looking to get all this stuff anyway, then the crowdfunding is not the worst place to get it because they give you those things, well, now instead of having to hunt down, track down all of those things later. Then moving on, we have Silver. Silver from AEG over here, we have AEG. I always pause because CGE versus AEG. But Silver from AEG over here, we have $160,000 raised, 1,290 backers, 70 days to go. This is basically giving you a big box of Silver, a 5 to 6 player expansion, and then a bunch of two new modules to the Silver universe. Silver's a game where you're basically trying to get rid of your werewolves and whatnot. You're purging werewolves from your town. You're going to be drawing a card, playing a card, drawing a card, playing a card, with a bunch of rules and abilities that completely change the way that operates. So the rules as far as, when you discard cards, you can discard the same level card if you have multiples of the highest, or various abilities on the various cards that will completely change the way the game operates, but it's basically hand management with powers and abilities across a variety of sets. And the game does have mix and match compatibility. All these different sets of Silver you could mix and match in different ways, which is hence the reason for this giant box over here. We're going to have the ability to put all these boxes into the big box with the various player mats, with the 5 to 6 player expansion, with all 6 Silver games, 2 of which are new to this campaign, and the 4 of which already, I think Eye and Fang are the new ones over here, and the other 4 of which already been on. Fixed perfectly on Calyx shelves, gives you all the playmats. This is basically an all-in collector's edition for those who like Silver. That's the main point of it. 5, 6 player expansion, all of those stuff. It is a lighter game. I've played, I believe, only the original in the game. I think I played the original Silver Bullet or whatever it is. I have not played any of them since then. I thought it was a fine game, but didn't capture my attention enough. But it is a game that has multiple print runs, a lot of people who are interested in it, and yeah, that's basically the gameplay over there. As far as the pledge levels over here, we have the $79 pledge level if you already have, which is only for people who already have the first 4 Silver games, or I guess you don't have to have all 4, but I imagine anyone who's getting this probably has all the content for it. We have 99, which is going to give you the 5 to 6 player expansions as well, so all the stuff in the Silver level, plus the 5 to 6 player expansion. And we have over here, we have for $139, we have the Platinum pledge level, giving you everything in the Silver pledge level, plus the Silver Amulet, Silver Bullet, Silver Coin, and Silver Dagger. And then for absolutely everything, we have $159, which gives you absolutely everything, including the 5 to 6 player and all that stuff. Which just, the 5 to 6 player just ultimately comes down to what player count are you playing this game with as you go through it, and do you care about getting that extra as you try to pack this game with all the goodness you can as you put this onto your Calyx cubby shelf over there. That's basically going to be the game. As far as should you back, should you not, will it hold its value? Hard to say on these ones. These kinds of deluxe pledges, which are not your typical retail presence and hard to get your hands on, are very hard to say overall. It's such a hodgepodge of mixed components that it's tricky. I am skeptical that this is one that will hold its value if you're trying to sell it. I am skeptical of that. So if it's a game that's not for you, I don't think it's going to be one that's going to hold its value. But as far as retail presence and who's going to be carrying this and what's the access on, that's much harder to say. This is a very unique product as far as being a, it's kind of like this the Terraforming Mars big box edition, that kind of thing, where it's something that's expensive, but it might hold hold its value, it might not. It very much depends on just what the presence for the game is, what the availability for that game will be down the road. So my instinct is that you can get this cheaper down the road, one way or another, either the secondhand market or retail, but it is harder to say, so you know, consider that a definite risk either way. Moving on over here, we have D-Day Dice, To Do or Die. 497 backers, $52,000 raise, 17 days to go. This is a combination. This is from Wordforge Games, who recently put out a game that's like V Commandos. I was very interested. I backed that one, waiting for that one. Either way, that's not me complaining. That's me being excited. But over here, we have To Do or Die. This is basically going to be a book of various maps, components, content, bonus content, you know, personal anecdotes. It seems like some degree of some aspects of things that led to. It's a whole hodgepodge of various things in this book. But I assume many of you are here for the campaigns, for the maps, for the extra elements for D-Day Dice. D-Day Dice is going to be a solo puzzle of, well, trying to basically overcome the enforcers in the game. It was, I believe, the first game to ever cross $100,000 on Kickstarter, so that's a certain claim to fame. It has multiple crowdfunding campaigns since then. Overall, it's been a game that was very, like, I remember when it first came out. I remember how popular it was. People were very excited for it and all that. But it's a game that has certainly faded from the public eye to a certain degree, while still having its hardcore audience of people who are very big fans of the game. It's had several editions, several expansions, all of that. And over here, we have new battle maps in this book over here. We have updated battle maps as well, so we have the Arena Normandy, all 30 battle maps in the second edition over here in this map book. So a bunch of options as far as getting more content for the game, and there's a ton of little mini expansions, like an absolute ton. I'm not going to go through all of them. There's like all this stuff over here as far as the various extra things you can get. Just a lot of it, most of it previously released content, a lot of it Kickstarter exclusive, all those various things for the game. So just a lot of ways to mix and match what you're getting. We have the Bookkeeper pledge for €45 over here, the Librarian pledge for €65, and the Scholar for €85, which gets you all of these things over here, you know, all the stuff listed over here, plus 4 more. You can look through the details to see all that. As far as should you back or should you not, will it hold its value? Used to be the original D-Day Dice, definitely did. Since then, it's usually about the easiest way to get your hands on the stuff. It doesn't do as well in the secondhand market. It does fine, but you are going to take a hit on it if it's not a game for you, just based on how, again, it used to be very, very popular. It used to sell for well above its value, but it has gone down over time since then. Then we have Bloodthrone, the Tower of Sacrifice, 291 backers, $70,000 raised, 24 days to go. This is, I can't really tell what this is. It's coming from an established company. Frontline Gaming is an established company, but this is their first Kickstarter campaign. But this is going to be a cooperative, 1-7 player cooperative game, 60 to 120 minutes. Basically, miniatures taking down the various, you know, you're going through a campaign over here. As you go through it, there's a campaign map, there's a giant box over here. You're going to be, you know, I'm trying to figure out where the video is. Maybe was it the video? Doesn't show a lot on the gameplay page. It might have been the video, but it's basically going to be fighting, you know, in a cooperative skirmish game. Honestly, not that dissimilar to Conan, although Ball will add, actually. Conan had a great video. Highly recommend watching that. Very solid video overall. But going back to Blood over here, Blood Throne, the Tower of Sacrifice. Basically, this is a large Conan-like style game. It's a, you know, scenario, a campaign game, not it's campaign instead of whatever, but it's a campaign game, cooperative, miniatures, taking down the enemies, all of that. But as far as the pledge levels over here, first of all, the pledge levels are already weird in the sense that you start with a bunch of expansions for the game. So, like we have, if you want to buy the Gargantus expansion pledge level, like this, it almost feels like they don't know how to structure a Kickstarter campaign. I don't say that critically. Structuring Kickstarter or GameFound campaigns, they are confusing if you don't know what you're doing, but it feels like, again, without knowing for sure, this expansion here is a pledge level. Like, it's a pledge level for an expansion, so unless you're here for the miniature model, maybe you are just here for the miniature, I don't know. Maybe that's the main reason you're here, but this would be an optional buy or add-on, not in the pledge level. So a little weird in that sense. We have the Hero expansion for $80, same problem. We have the early bird pledge for the actual core game over here for $180, $199 for the full core game, which fortunately no one's backing that. The amount of times I see someone paying more for the game that's more expensive, it happens a lot. We have the early bird pledge for the Gargantus bundle, so again, it's at least a bundle over here, but you know, the core game, the Gargantus expansion, 12 backers over there. Yeah, again, the whole thing feels very weirdly structured. No real like, videos, testimonials, any of that kind of thing. It's just, you know, and then the shipping over here and all that stuff. It's just hard to really tell what's going on over here. I would say, unless you're already a fan of their stuff, my instinct is to pass on it. That's my instinct. It's not... It's a weird situation. I just think there's other games that are more likely to... And the price point, by the way. The price point is expensive as well. So my instinct is don't back this one unless you are someone who's already a fan of the stuff. Because otherwise, I think there are better ways and places to put your money. Moving on, we have Spire's End Rangitaki over here. This is coming to me from Greg Fagro from Spire's End. He's done 3 of these campaigns now. He's done Spire's End Hildegard, Spire's End Rangitaki. All of them following the same basic formula, but then mixing it up in each one of them. The basic idea is you have a card, you have a story. You're going to look at the card and then start making choose your own adventure choices. You know, hey, you're presented with this option. What do you choose? And that will decide where you go into the deck. It's basically choose your own adventure as a game. If you play games like Island Something Shiny, it has elements of that. Although if you played, well, well, Spire's End, it has elements of that as well. Each of the games gives their own little differences to the module, like Spire's End, Hildegard, like, had the whole, had, like, I can't remember, it's been a while, I played Hildegard a while ago, but it has been a while. But either way, each of them basically is giving you choose your own adventure gameplay with mechanics as well as you go through it, trying to, you know, just basically go through a bunch of decks and a bunch of chapters in the game. They are replayable in the sense that there are multiple pathways to take that will change up how you interact with the game systems, so you could get a few plays out of it before you've seen enough that it might be a little bit lacking in terms of going through it. But that's basically the overall concept and system. It's got great art, great production, great graphic design, all of those things overall. Very, very appealing little puzzle for if you're looking for a solo or cooperative little mini game to go through. Minigame might be the wrong terminology. Small box game to go through. But over here we have Rangitaki, $42 for the game. Basically, it's one pledge, plain and simple overall. You cannot get, or we do have the optional buy, the add-ons over here, the micro expansion, the Salt and Sea expansion, we have the playmat, so we do have some extras you can get over here. They have said that you cannot get the previous Spire's End's product on the Kickstarter campaign. You could get them on the website. So if you want the other Spire's End product, just go to the website, get them there, and then shipping will run you $12 for the game. As far as should you back or should you not, these games are very quirky, very charming, not quirky, they're very quaint, not the right word, I'm using all the wrong words. They're very charming. They're very charming games that have a degree of appeal, especially if you're a solo or cooperative player. They are generally ranked well enough, and they generally are well received. But as far as should you back, should you not will hold its value, not instinctively, based on past games from them, their games don't do as well on the secondhand market. If you back this game, you know, you might play it, it might be great for you, but when it is time to move on from them, they don't do as well as the original price point. They're a very specific audience. They don't have, like, I mean, 2,600 backers is very solid, but overall, they just don't do as well on the secondhand market. So this is a game that, you know, by all means get it. I think you will have a good time. Honestly, if the overall mechanics and game seem like they are appealing to you, I think it will appeal to you. My one cautionary aspect from playing Hildegard is they are a little mechanics light. They have mechanics for sure, but they are a little mechanics light. I don't know to what extent Rangitaki iterates on that. I know from people who play the original Spire's End that was a similar opinion of it. So both for Hildegard and Spire's End, they are more about the choose your own adventure with a dash of mechanics and less focused on just how mechanically heavy the games are. So you do have to know that going in. I think if you are someone who enjoyed Island Something Shiny, this is falling into that same vein. This will likely be appealing to you as well. They have similar aspects, different ways that they actually resolve, but similar aspects to them that I think they're targeting that same audience where you're more interested in the journey than the mechanical heaviness of the game. But again, Rangitaki may iterate on elements of that, so that might have changed to some small degree. That's going to be Spire's End, Rangitaki from, well, Greg Favreau. Moving on, Greg Favreau, isn't that Greg Favreau? Yeah, Greg Favreau. Moving on, we have Among Us, Among Cultists, based on Among Us, like they say so as much, based on Among Us, the video game, a murder mystery thriller board game. This is a social deduction game that is very much based on Among Us. You're going to be wandering around from room to room. You can kill people if you're bad, unless there's other witnesses in the room, in which case you can't. You can take the various room abilities, so if this is sounding like Among Us, it is Among Us in a board game called Among Cultists. It has generally been well received with some degree of controversy. What I mean by that is if you look at the BGG ratings, there are a lot of people who have really, really enjoyed this game. There's also a lot of people who are rating it 1s because of the various fake ratings of 9s and 10s being given, or at least the accusation of fake ratings, and looking through it, it does seem like, fake is always a tough terminology, it does seem like there are a lot of independent ratings on the game that are specifically, let's call it I don't want to call it fake ratings, but let's call it non-normal day-to-day ratings, whatever you want to call it. But basically meaning they might well be people who rated the game a 9 or 10, genuinely, might actually be that, but it does seem to be a degree of people who wouldn't otherwise rate games who are jumping in to rate this a 9 or 10, which could mean fake accounts, or could mean that they're like, hey, by the way, you playtester who's never gone on BGG in your life, we'd love it, and we know how much you enjoyed it, we'd love it if you went and rated it. Basically, my point is, take those ratings with a grain of salt. While they may be legitimate, you should absolutely take ratings with a grain of salt when they are biased by not your standard operating model of how ratings are given. Although the flip side of it is there's a bunch of people who rate the game a 1 to counterbalance that. So it is an overall well-received game, just with some ratings drama behind the scenes. So that's something to be mindful of as you go through it. And the ratings, if you actually read through the reviews, it's fascinating how all over the place they are. There are people who are like, this is the worst piece of garbage I've seen in a long time, and the rulebook's terrible, and the gameplay's boring, and then there are people who are like, this game was great, my entire group loved it. And again, while there are ratings I wouldn't trust, there are a lot of ratings from people who have played a lot of games who are very, very favorable on the game. So it seems to be a very polarizing game for whatever it's worth. But that's going to be Among Cultists over here. 1,843 backers, $108,000 raised, 25 days to go. This is both a reprint, but also it's going to be a reprint and a new expansion. So we have the new expansion over here being added, a Returning Evil Pledge over here. And the basic gameplay, like I said already, the basic gameplay is pretty simple. You move around, you're assigned a role, you're trying to accomplish your goal objectives, either, taking down the baddies or killing all the other people, and you can't kill people if there's witnesses in your room, and you're using room abilities to try to mitigate. If you've played Among Us, it is basically that core gameplay in a board game form. The expansions are all going to introduce different maps and different characters and small different modular aspects to it, like various things to do to mix up your gameplay. And the new Returning Evil pledges are going to be giving you this Returning Evil, not pledge over here, the map over here, the under the surface over here. Visit the Antarctic and find Organism 46B, gather items, but don't borrow the important equipment to possible traders. So this is basically giving you, again, another map, more gameplay aspects being mixed in. That's going to be available for €28 if you just want that new expansion, and it's giving you all the new things, like, so you have, the stretch goals and the free gifts, Among Cultists puzzle, and 25 wooden deluxe components. Oh, that reminded me. I'm going to have to go back to one other campaign in a second. That's basically what we have over there as far as we get for this campaign over here. Then we have €50 for the core game, and then we have the all-in for €124, which gives you the base gameplay, the expansions that were previously out, and then of course the new expansion as well. There's also going to be an optional buy of Galactic Heroes, which is basically a retheming of Human Punishment Social Deduction 2.0, one of their previous social deduction games. This is a retheming of that, trying to basically determine who's a hero and who's a robot. Are you a valiant human, a cunning robot, or a mysterious alien in this game? That's going to be your roles in this game. The art, I like the art and presentation a lot. I mean, overall, it looks very charming. This gives me vibes from who's that villain in oh my gosh, the Incredibles. This guy gives me vibes of the villain in The Incredibles. Like, give me a drop more of an afro. Like, I think he's even supposed to be a good guy, but he just gives me those vibes. But anyways, that's basically the core. That's basically the gameplay, or that's basically the Among Us crowdfunding campaign. As far as should you back or should you not, will it hold its value? Hard to say 100%. If you look on the secondhand market, there's not a ton of sales. It's a recent delivery, but it does look like overall there have been a bunch of. It's hard to say because there's mixed. There are certainly pledges that have sold for less than what people paid for it, but there are pledges that have sold for more than people paid for it. So there's not a ton of sales data yet on this one, but it does seem like the original one was enough demand that it could go either way. I think that's likely to hold true on this one as well. There's definitely a popularity to this one, and the amount of gameplay you're getting for the amount you're paying for it does feel reasonable overall, but ultimately it's because it's a mix right now. I'd say it's a mix. So if you're just looking for the cheapest way to get your hands on the game, honestly, waiting on the secondhand market or even just checking right now might be the best way to go ahead and just try to pick this one up and hope to snag a deal. But if you are interested in this game, it could go either way as far as holding its value, but there are people who are selling it for what they paid for it. And that is basically going to be Among Cultists over here. And before we go to the end of the video over here, because we are at the end, the thing I forgot about is in Kabuto Sumo, at the higher pledge levels, you're also getting this little deluxified coin over here. This little coin which has a 6-digit code that is going, here we go, the medallion, which by the way, this says over here 6-digit code, and over here it's an 8-digit code, so I don't know here. But basically they have this little medallion that will give you a little unique 8-digit code that will be in some way useful to you, but it's not defined how. Medallion holders from the last campaign are still waiting to see how they might redeem it. So that's a little interesting, little mystery gift of something. As usual with things like this, I recommend only backing the campaign if you are interested, assuming a $0 value on that, but it is a fun little extra to see where things go. And that's basically all the campaigns. This brings us to, what are we up to? Picks of the week. Picks of the week. As usual, picks of the week is going to be two things. We're going to have a personal interest pick of the week, a game that I am most interested in and a game that I think is most likely to hold its value. To that end, I do think that they both line up with Master of the Universe, but I am going to go ahead and shift them away a drop, so I'm going to use Master of the Universe as my personal interest pick of the week. This is a great game that I thoroughly enjoy, lots of fun. I love the original World of Smog, Rise of Moloch. I still have it. I love Master of the Universe. There's elements of both games that I prefer, but ultimately, Master of the Universe has single shot. You can sit down and play it. Tons of powers and abilities left, right, and center. I really enjoy this game. And as far as the value pick of the week, we're going to go with Conan over here. Conan is one that generally does a very good job holding its value on the secondhand market. It's always hard to say with the new expansion, but I think that's likely going to hold true on this one. And again, value pick of the week does not mean most gameplay for your content. It means if you're looking to get the game, is it better to wait or get it now if you are someone who does want to get the game. Even if it is more expensive than you'd others pay for, that's the value concept. Anyways, with that, we're going to go ahead and move to the upcoming campaigns. Upcoming campaigns, we have a few over here. We have Doomguard launching, well, tomorrow over on GameFound. A game that's going to basically have you playing as superheroes against the Elder Ones as you try to take them down. And then we have coming up, later this, well, soon, very soon, tomorrow as well, we have Earthborn Rangers. 13,000 people following this campaign. This campaign was definitely a sleeper hit in the sense that the amount of people who are hyping and buzzing this campaign after having gotten it, who are talking about how good of a game it is, it should be on your radar. If you are someone who likes Arkham Horror, the card game, or that style of game, this is one you should be looking into and checking out. Yeah, Earthburn Rangers over here from Earthburn Rangers. That's Earthburn Games, from Earthburn Games. That is everything. Until next time, I'm Alex Rackle from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one. Chinese takeout, $27. Delivery fee, $4.50. Finding out that they've left one of the containers behind, priceless.